There we go. Panther Nation, the C3 podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com.
I had fun, man. Just out, you guys joking. We working at the same time, putting the work in as a team. Like I said, I'm just glad to be with the guys,
My favorite night of the week?
We're going to go out there, and we're playing to win. We're not out here just to show up. We're out here to win.
I don't want guys that want to win. Because really, who doesn't? Nobody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. I want players that hate to win.
This embodies everything that we are as a team, as an organization. Our motto is keep pounding. And that's what we do. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, what's up, Panther fans? It's your boy, the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn. This is C3 Podcast. Coming to you a little late tonight, 9 after 9. Little problems with the stream, and I'm going to get all of that fixed up as we go along. Guys, tonight's episode is 17.51. We've got Wilkes' departure, Washington's promotion, and the Senior Bowl. Plus, we'll be talking Norv Turner's most recent interview status, or his, not interview status, but at the same time, he did a one-on-one series with the Carolina Panthers that I think gives a lot of insight into the way that he's going to tackle and the strategy he's going to handle things. But we're going to break all that down, and I do it tonight with my best friends, Joe Riolano, Mel Mayock. How are you guys tonight?
Doing good, Professor, man. It's good to be here. Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, or close to it anyway. Hey, this kind of stuff happens. Hasn't happened in a while here on C3, so yeah, you're just kicking it old school style. But it's good to be here, man. Yeah,
we haven't had any problems in a minute, Joe, but you come back and there's problems.
I know. I've jinxed the show tonight. I'm sorry, guys, but this good to be here. I missed last week. I'm happy to be back to talk about the Panthers and what we're looking ahead to. The off season is always a time filled with hope and rampant speculation. So let's get this show on the road and talk about some Carolina Panthers and what we're looking ahead to.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, I want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the show right now. We need more subscribers. YouTube is now making the 1,000 subscriber the gold standard for channels that you have to kind of be featured now. So we're at 770, I believe. I think we get the watch time. It's like you have to have a certain amount of watch time or a certain amount of subscribers. So we need to grow to 1,000, quick, in a hurry. So tell somebody about this show. If you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, thanks for joining us. You can always call the Cat Calls line at 252-228-5098, where we feature your calls and just get a good temperature of Panther Nation and the fan base. All right, let's go ahead and talk about these things. We'll do more plugs about ourselves as we go. Enough yellow journalism. Guys, the biggest news this week is that Steve Wilkes was hired for the Arizona Cardinals job as of, I think, officially yesterday. It's a big move. I was a little surprised that he actually got the full-time gig this year. I thought that it was going to wait another year, but he lands in a good place. I think that has a good core. Patrick Peterson, one of the cornerbacks there, was very excited that he was the hire. So Wilkes' departure, good sign, because that means the Panthers have been doing well and our guys are getting hired.
The Rivera tree is growing across the NFL, It really is. It's pretty cool to see.
Joe, how do you feel about Wilkes' departure?
It's a good thing for him. I hate losing him because of what I heard Josh Norman say today on WFNZ. He talked about how Wilkes is a good person and he's a leader of men. And you hate to lose somebody like that. You really do. But good for him, good for his career, and I do wish him the very best. Now, Mr. Washington has to come in and step up his game.
How do
It
you
does.
feel about this internal hire? I am completely on board here. I think that this is a good move here. I think that we got a guy that is respected among the league. Eric Washington, he's been around for a little while. I mean, he's been with the Panthers, I think, since 2011. He was with the Bears from 2008 to 2010. But he's also coached at college as defensive coordinator in college for a small school. I don't know if it was his alma mater or Grambling State or not. But I like this one internal move because we brought in Norv Turner from the outside. You know, we have an owner that's being changed. We have a new GM that we don't know who it is. It's Marty Herney for the moment. The owner is leaving. There's a lot of turmoil. I think that as long as – I think this is a good thing. I think it's a good thing for bosses to do, to give guys, their own guys, a chance to show what they've learned. Do you like the internal promotion, or do you feel that we should have gone and looked at somebody like Jack Del Rio for a second stint with the Carolina Panthers?
Well, you know, my first thought was, let's take a look around. You know, Jack Del Rio came immediately to my mind, you know, and I always like when a head coach who gets let go comes in to be a coordinator. You know, that typically turns out pretty good. But I do love the philosophy of moving guys up the ladder within your organization. That's a way of maintaining continuity and not having these, hopefully, all these ups and down years. You know, have some stability. And this is a year, as you were just talking about, where stability is not going to be there. So anywhere, I mean, that's why it was a great move by the Panthers to extend Ron Rivera right now. You know, if he was going into a lame duck year with everything else going on, that would just be chaos.
No, I think losing a head coach right now could destroy the franchise.
I agree. So extending him, even though, granted, a new owner could come in and say he's not my guy, I want him gone. But right now you've got him under lock and key for 2 years, 3 years, you know, 2-year extension. So that's providing some stability on the football side. And then with the defensive coordinator just stepping up a rung. And let's face it, Norv Turner is not exactly branching out and starting a new system. You know, this has been Norv Turner's system since Cam Newton has gotten here, and you know, since Chudzinski, who was a Turner disciple, was here. So a lot of continuity, a lot of familiarity with Rivera. Rivera is kind of the stabilizing force right now in the Panthers organization. So I like it.
Joe, how you feel about the internal move? I think it's the stability is one thing. I think another thing that may be lost a little is that what does it say about the guys that you have that are working hard every day among your staff, doing some of the less glamorous type grunt work, watching film, whatever they ask assistant coaches to do? How hard do they want to strive in an organization if they don't believe there's an opportunity to be rewarded? So
exactly.
you pass over a guy for another, and not if you don't at least seriously consider them, it's not just a personal slight. It takes away the incentive to succeed.
Great point.
It really does. If you truly believe in the people you're bringing into your staff, as they show their value and they show their willingness to do whatever it takes, as they take on more responsibility and they seem to be proficient at what they're doing, it only makes sense to elevate them to better opportunities as they become available. Yeah. If you really believe in the guys that you have.
Yeah, because if you don't, what does that say about the person that you hired to do that job in the first place?
It's the same thing in the business world, you know? I mean, if you're constantly coming in, bringing in management from the outside instead of moving people up, you know, the morale really does suffer.
Now, the good thing, though, or the important thing about this, though, is to know when to cut your losses, though, and to not feel you need to do that when it's appropriate, but not do that to prove to yourself that you were right in the first place. Yeah, because, you always have in a big organization people that are necessary that aren't great. I mean, they are necessary. Like, you have to keep the ship running. So they may not be the best, but you can't fire everybody from anytime they screw up at the same time. So you're going to have some people like that. You have to,
like that.
Yeah, and if you are a good leader, you got to know that that's what type of person they are, and that's when you don't look at them for that position. So I think that says something. Look, is that Wilkes? He got his shot. He came in. It seems that he did a good job. Were there things that people didn't like? It's kind of funny. I saw one tweet earlier that said last year we were always critical of McDermott not being aggressive enough, not blitzing enough, playing two zone, not enough man, and then you get Wilkes in here and and everybody's crying about him being too aggressive, not playing enough zone, playing too much man to man. So you always, it's always the prom date that you're with is never as good as the one you could have gone with, I guess.
That's right.
But I do think that says, look, what does this say about Wilkes getting this opportunity, about him? I think it can't be on his body of work alone. What he must have done is won that interview. He must have just blew him out of the water.
Well, do you recall, Professor, earlier in this year when there was an interview of Steve Wilkes on Panthers.com? Man, the guy is mesmerizing. He is just, you want to run through the wall for the guy. I texted you as soon as I saw that. And I was like, this guy's going to be a head coach next year. And he was. And my prediction earlier in the year was Gettleman was going to New York and he was going to follow. And that almost happened, but he ends up in Arizona. And, man, I think he's going to do a great job. He's a military guy, as is Washington. He's a former naval officer. So, it's kind of a common thread there with Rivera's guys.
Joey, how does the teaching, one of the things we've talked about is how these guys are good teaching coaches, or at least that's what we identified going back to what Mel's talking about. I think we all remember when we had that conversation about how good he was in articulating a message, a vision, motivating, and seems like a natural teacher. And that's what Josh Norman, I think, was indicating too. How do you guys think that that skill set shows itself at a head coach level, right? Is that because to me, I think it could be a very valuable asset to have as a head coach, because you're not the guy working with individual player groups necessarily all the time. You're kind of the guy who's just the lead motivator. And how do you think that skill set fits a head coaching job well?
I think it can, but I think the challenge is when you get somebody who is really good at their job and then you move them into management, it is hard to find people that live up to that standard, right? So Wilkes was really good at his job and was really charismatic and a very solid teacher. So now he's got to find a defensive coordinator that he feels comfortable with, that has the same type of skills. And sometimes that's hard. You take Michael Jordan and you put him as a coach. He's going to be expecting players to come in and have Michael Jordan skills. And that's sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. A key for Wilkes and really any head coaching success is finding the right staff.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Guys, just to continue on this door, I think the Slim J 513 says, thanks for joining, Slim. Slim J's always great in the YouTube chat. He says look, the word is Wilkes is hiring Al Holcomb as his defensive coordinator, the Panthers linebackers coach.
Yeah.
So,
and Coach Brown, the offensive line coach.
Keep coming. They just keep coming. Well, that's good. You know what that means? That means next year Thomas Davis will have, at the end of next season, he'll have a linebacking.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, I think they just promoted Chase Blackburn to special teams coach. I read that, and that is a guy that was Gettleman's guy from New York that he brought here that has found his way to, he was a good player when he was here for being old as can be. You know what I'm saying? Is that I think that maybe shows his savvy about the game a lot. So, is that those are some small things that we don't get to see a lot, is how these smaller coaching positions translate into a team's success and continuity. But you get those guys, you move them along, and you can hopefully bring together a new unit that can do a lot of the things that the previous one did better, and you never know, you might get more out of it. So let's turn to the offensive line, or the offensive side of the ball. I think the big story, or the big thing this week, featured on Panthers.com. You can find the whole interview, but I think we need to talk about this. Norv Turner sits down one-on-one with Bill Voth to talk a little bit about what we should expect and how he's approaching it. Guys, just initial impressions. Joey, I'll have you start. Initial impressions of Norv Turner and taking over the Carolina Panthers offense after you've heard from him.
Well, I'm excited on what he said about Cam Newton, about him being an experienced quarterback and being able to do it all. And the best thing that he made it seem like his opinion is the best thing we can do for Cam is to raise the level of talent around him.
Amen.
Every Panther fan has been saying that for years now.
Yep.
And now that we have an offensive coordinator that expresses the same opinion as what the Panther fans have been saying, we should see some of this raising the level of play around him come to fruition.
Yeah, I think what Joe's referencing is this comment on Cam Newton, which was this gets a guy like me. I love this dude already.
Last year, there's nobody like Cam. He can really do anything you want to do, and
So there's nobody like Cam. He can do anything you want him to do, because in this discussion, when it comes up, is that, and we saw Cody Lashney said Bill Voth is really annoying nowadays. Bill Voth, I feel like, tried to act like he was throwing some hard questions at Norv Turner. But, is that like, hey, how are you going to handle Cam? He's not you've coached these pocket passers. Well, actually, let's hear what some of these questions were. Here is one from Bill Voth.
Most of the quarterbacks you've been successful with have been of the standard pocket passer variety. Cam Newton is not. Will there be a learning curve for both of you as you start to work together?
No, because a lot of the things that we'll do with Cam, the system's in place, and we actually at different times with Bridgewater ran some of the Carolina stuff. It wasn't to feature Teddy as a runner, but it opened up running lanes. Teddy's first start, we used a lot of the zone read stuff against Atlanta, and really had a big game against them. So, same thing. There's certain things this coaching staff, the offensive staff have used. We're going to continue to use those things. I always think it's important for the quarterback that when you're in the pocket, the things you're doing, to be very quick with the ball, be specific, get the ball out, and that's where I think we can help Cam.
Have you talked?
All right, so this is what sticks out right there is Bill Voth comes out and says that you've worked with pocket passers in the past. This is something, and he's asking the question fans have asked, is that like how can Norv Turner take advantage of Cam's talents? But he says this is that those guys are pocket passers. Cam Newton is not. Thoughts on Cam Newton not the pocket passer, guys? Because I think that stood out to me, is that I disagree.
Well, there is some truth to that. I mean, let's face it, he's not Drew Brees. He is a more versatile quarterback, and he needs to be used as such. I think if you tried to make him Drew Brees, he's going to fail. But I love what Norv pointed out, that one of the ways to make Cam more accurate is to have better wide receivers that get off the line better and are where they're supposed to be on the routes, and they can get open and create separation. So it's not all on Cam; it's the situation that he's been in. But
Joey, does Cam Newton stand in the pocket and pass?
Cam Newton is capable
I'm sorry.
of standing in the pocket and passing. Is he a pocket passer? No. Cam Newton is an athlete that has a very good arm.
Right.
And he is capable of sitting back there and looking over a defense and finding the open man given time. But that is not his forte. Cam Newton is a playmaker.
Yeah, he is a playmaker. I do think he's I think the not see, I think the problem with Cam Newton is that he's more than a pocket passer and he's more than a running quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he can play the pocket. Like, I mean, he throws the ball relative. I know that the accuracy numbers are not there when it comes to completion percentage.
Worst ever this past year.
It was bad. He did have some very bad games when it came to his percentages. But
not
at the same,
all his fault.
right, is that I don't know if that is a clear referendum that he can't do those things. I think he can do all those things plus more. Here is them. This is the further elaboration on that subject right here.
But because of your history, people are going to say, well, maybe Norv wants to make him into a pocket passer now.
I was with Alex Smith in his second year, and we featured the things Alex did best, and we ran nakeds, and we ran quarterback draws, and we did quarterback keeps, and then we helped him improve as a pocket passer, and he made a real transformation from year one to year two. I mean, I think that second year was, people said, wait, Alex, this guy is, #1 draft pick and will be an outstanding player. So, I wouldn't limit my experience to being a guy that has to stay in that pocket. We've had success with a lot of different guys.
So if you're worried about Norv, and I'm getting a big echo somewhere, if you're worried about Norv Turner, and where is this echo coming from? If you're worried about Norv Turner and his ability to use Cam Newton, I think his inability to use him outside of his system, I think Norv has given us some good things to show that he's not as locked into some systematic look at offense, but that he is willing to work with the parts that he has to get the most out of them. Mel, do you kind of get that sense there? Is that what maybe we want to just put a label on these guys of what they can do? Maybe Norv Turner just is more flexible than we give him credit for.
Oh, definitely. And to take that a little bit further, something that I loved about his interview, something that I'm picking up on, is something that you and I and Joe have been clamoring for, is the adaptability. How many times – it seems like we do the same offense, the same things, no matter who we're playing, and no matter what's going on in the first quarter, second, third, fourth quarter, we're doing the same things. But Norv talked about it's a game of matchups, attacking the weakest players on the defense, doing different things in different situations, and adapting throughout a game. That gets me excited. So it sounds like Norv really is a guy who works with the strengths of the player he has, not a rigid system. But he talked about the zone read, the read option, things of that nature. So being able to do things that fit your players well, and then creating matchups to go after the weak links on your opponent. That will be a breath of fresh air if that comes to fruition.
Joey, I think he's referring to this right here.
Men, good players and great players, and you attack, you figure out what you try to do is attack the weakest players on the field and not challenge those great players, but that's the fun part for me it's a game of matchups. Everyone talks about your system and all the things you do, but you're trying to create matchups, and you're trying to create the matchups, against defense's weaknesses and against the weakest players.
And
Here, listen to him say this again.
Everyone talks about your system and all the things you do.
He says,
you're trying to create matchups, and you're trying to create. Everyone
Hold
talks
up.
about your system and all.
He said something like,
It's a
well,
game
listen
of
to him say
matchups.
matchups right here.
It's a game of matchups.
Matchups.
Everyone
Like he
talks about
sounds
your
like Barney Fife or somebody. No, pocket pass. He's a pocket passer, But look, we were talking this briefly before the show, Mel, and I don't think Joey was here yet. One of the things that we feel like is with this offense, have you watched a game and been clearly able to see that there was a line of attack that they wanted to take on a team against the defense?
The only time I see that, the last time I've seen that, probably the last 20 times, have been led by a Bill Belichick team. He is famous for coming out and making his offense look different based on who he's playing and attacking the weak link. But no, I haven't seen it in the Panthers.
Joey, can you remember a time where Mike Shula said, I feel like we watched this team closely enough and regularly enough that we would be like, oh, he's going after the backup corner, the weak spot, over, and it's just picking on him. I feel like teams do that to us. Joey,
plays, but I'm sorry, but have you seen? We've seen plays where the cornerback for the opposing team hobbles off the field, and the second or third string guy comes running out there, barely getting his helmet on in time, and then we run it up the middle. We're not attacking where we could be.
Right. No, that's the first thing Belichick would do, though. He would call a play and tell them to pick on the guy that just came off the bench.
Right.
The first thing he did.
I don't want to exaggerate and say we haven't done these things at all. And I think that, there's a lot of things we don't know that is going on behind the scenes when it comes to.
You said it well, though. It's not apparent. It's not apparent.
Preparation. Yeah, but we don't feel like, man, they are really going after the second. It never seems like they may be doing it, but we never really knew. And that means
they weren't good at it.
Yeah, maybe they weren't good at it.
Yeah, right.
Here, let's hear one more time for Norv Turner on these matchups.
What you strive to be offensively is you want to be good at enough things that whoever you're playing, you can take advantage of their weaknesses. And if you're playing a team that's first or second in the league in run defense and they're stout up front, you want to find ways to attack them differently. If you find a team that struggles against the run, you want to be a power run team. You want to be able to take some shots. But if you're going to score points in this league, you got to make explosive plays. This team's done a lot of that. There's a history of that.
So what I like he's saying here, though, about that is we need to be a better rounded offense so that you can't. So when those opportunities against the team do present themselves, you have the weapons that can strike at those weaknesses. Not this is how we're going to attack it and we hope that it's going to work, or, well, I guess it just stinks. We can't throw on this team, so we'll have to try to run it only. That we need to be more malleable as a team so that we can win in more situations.
Well, I think that's what's so great about Turner is he has such a deep depository of offensive plays, formations, what style of offense matches up well against a certain kind of defense. He just has volumes and volumes, or at least mental volumes, of all this information. And he's going to be able to pull bits and pieces from different styles of offense or different formations and put them together to be able to be this multifaceted offense that can run a heavy, tight formation run game or spread you out and fling the ball all over the field. He just has, tons and tons of experience. That's going to be so invaluable to Cam and the rest of the guys on this offense. We're going to see the type of offense we've been dreaming of since we drafted Cam.
I agree. I think Cam is going to trust Norv Turner more as well, and the vision of what Norv Turner wants to do. Like, I think he's going to say this is that when he says this is how we're going to attack this defense, Cam's like, hell yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think, yeah, and let's not underestimate Cam is going into this offseason healthy. So he's going to have a lot of time to work with him in the OTAs and everything else. So I'm excited. We got to put some talent around him. We got to solidify a few things. But I also like what Norv Turner talked about these wide receivers, how there is some skill there, but they've got to learn to play faster. They've got to learn to play to their speed. Like Curtis Samuels, he asked about him, and he talked about, hey, his speed is apparent, but he's got to learn to play to his speed. Be able to get off that line quick, be able to get in and out of the breaks quick, things of that nature. So, hey, man, I'm excited.
Lynn pointed out in the YouTube chat that Turner is known for making adjustments, and that's the one thing we've never really felt all that great about.
Has that been a failing of this offense? Has been adjustments. This offensive coaching staff has been the worst at that.
We've been a team of politicians and teachers, and what that is what politicians and teachers do is that when something doesn't work, they just try it harder. And I think it was Einstein that said that was insanity.
That's right.
All right, so again, encouraging everybody, thank you for watching the show, tuning in. We want to hear from you. Thank you for participating in the YouTube chat. We appreciate all your input. You can subscribe to the show. We're trying to get to 1,000, so help us. Tell a Carolina Panthers fan about the show. If you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, make sure that you send us an email at carolinacatchronicles@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on the broadcast, and be sure to subscribe, like, and share wherever you're listening and watching this show. We really appreciate the support. If you're interested in donating to the podcast, you can find that information in the show notes or on the website. Guys, let's turn the attention now to what are we going to talk about now? I think we should probably talk. I wanted to say this is that I saw this tweet right here at My Sports Update, and they said more names are coming, but here is a list of people, veterans, who they believe could be cut or traded for salary cap purposes. I'm going to read the full name list off and see if any of these names stick out to you. There's about 10 of them. They said they're going to do more. DeMarco Murray, Doug Martin, Des Bryant, Brandon Marshall, Jeremy Maclin, Michael Crabtree, Julius Thomas, the Honey Badger, Mo Wilkerson, Michael Bennett, Richard Sherman, Rogers Cromartie, Jeremy Lane. More to follow, he says. Any of those names of interest to you guys?
Two biggest names to me that jump out would be Jeremy Maclin. I think given the right situation, I think he's still got a good bit left in the tank. He'd be somebody I'd love to see. And then, of course, the Honey Badger in the right situation, man, you put him back there in our secondary, that would help a lot. But I'd kind of be surprised if Arizona lets him go. He's a good player.
He's about to make like $18 million or something. Yeah, something big.
$19 million. And if they were going to ask him to take a pay cut, but if he doesn't, they're going to cut it.
Yeah, he can't make that kind of jack.
All right, so Slim J says Honey Badger, Michael Bennett, or Crabtree. I think Crabtree is not a good fit for the team.
I agree. I don't think so either.
I think he would duplicate the talent a little bit of what we got. I think I would cross Dez, Brandon Marshall, and Michael Crabtree off because I think you got Funchess who does the similar things. So unless
I think I like Maclin in that situation.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting name. I don't know. He's just had such a health issue or problem staying healthy. But I agree. I don't think.
I was reading in that thread, and they mentioned Demaryius Thomas. But much like you thought with Crabtree, I think he's more of the same with Funches. But they did say Emmanuel Sanders was also
Emmanuel Sanders would be badass. He would be good.
I think that would be the guy.
I'd go after that big time.
But I think Demaryius Thomas, well, he does kind of have questionable hands. I think he's better than all of those dudes, clearly. But probably not what we need. Exactly. And another thing is that we're probably looking more Allen Robinson type player. I think would help. I continue to think that it could be now his name escapes me. I've been talking about him for over in Indianapolis. Who have I been talking about for the last 2 weeks?
Moncrief.
Moncrief, that's right. Good grief, Moncrief.
That's it.
All right, let's see. The other thing I want to talk about this is the Senior Bowl has begun. And I saw some names that the Panthers, in fact, you can go to my Twitter page. I'm starting a Twitter Moments that I'm going to try to keep up with throughout this off season, where we get these like little snippets of people tweeting out things about potential meetings, guys that Panthers scouts we're seeing here. I'm going to just try to keep it all in one Twitter moment. And I know there's a lot of guys that are doing some cool things. Gene Farrell, he keeps a full list on his website, panthergf.wordpress.com. So here is a name here's 3 names I think that I saw. Kaiser White, safety from West Virginia. Reportedly, Marty Herney is going to be meeting with him. Ian Thomas, tight end from Indiana. Linebacker Michael Kaiser from Virginia. But I think the big name was the list is Alabama's defensive end Deshaun Hand was reportedly met with the Carolina Panthers. Malky, tell us anything about Deshaun Hand as a NFL potential prospect.
Well, he's a big body, and he if Starr's going to walk away, that's somebody to definitely take a look at. It's one of those big Alabama boys playing right up the middle, which is they got a good history of players coming out of there. I have not broke him down, so I can't tell you his strengths and weaknesses yet. But I just know watching him, he's a playmaker.
Throwing this out there, as opposed to drafting someone like that, which may not be a bad move at all. What about a free agent possibility? Remember the guy, the Buffalo Bills drafted an Alabama player. His name escapes me right now. Defensive lineman. I think he just left. Maybe.
Wait, Marcel Darius?
Yeah, is Darius on the Jaguars now?
Yeah, I think he is.
He was an Auburn guy, wasn't he?
He was Auburn.
I think so.
Okay. Well, I knew it was somewhere in Alabama, but did they sign him to a big deal?
Well, the rumor right now is that Peppers is now. I'll look up Darius's. That Peppers is looking to come back, and I also saw this is that Big Money put an Instagram post, and he said heading into last off season, so indicating that he would retire after this year. So, but the Panthers can cut him without any penalty.
Right.
So he should not be holding them back. What's that?
I thought they would save money if they cut him.
Well, yeah, is that you would save over $3 million. Right now, Marcel Darius's contract, he signed a 6-year, $95 million deal with the Bills on 2015. 42. He could be. I think they took his contract over because he was traded. Yeah. So he is with the Jaguars. They could, if they cut him this year, they would have $7 million in dead money and only $2 million in he's going to get cut next year, not this year.
Okay.
They'll save $10 million and $14 million the following year. So that was all right. Let's ask that. where would you try to target? Because I think this, remember what Dave Gettleman always said, you use free agency to set up the draft. I think that, you're going to run into some problems. Those really skilled positions are more expensive. Defensive ends, offensive tackle, they cost in free agency. We have Norwell, that a lot of people are suspicious or believe that we'll have to let walk because we can, more easily plug in a guard, as well as who was somebody else that we were thinking about. Oh, yeah, Star, exactly. So where do you see the Carolina Panthers maybe attacking this offseason and free agency? I like that Honey Badger name a lot because, it's going to cost you a good bit. Well, he's always coming off an injury, I feel like. I don't know if he is coming off. Was he injured this past year?
I don't think so.
At least some. Not the whole year, but definitely some. I'm going to look it up.
I think that what you get is signing a big safety, while it's going to cost you some money, I think you could go out and get a quality player there, where if you try to go and sign a defensive end, it's going to really cost you money. Slim J says that he wants to franchise tag Norwell. The problem with franchise tagging Norwell is that I heard that they don't average it based on guard pay. The offensive line pay all across, they just consider him an offensive lineman. So I heard that he would be tagged as a tackle.
I think his number would be around $11 million. Is that about right for franchise? Which, that's a lot of money to play Norwell, man. I think in free agency, the biggest decision is going to be, are you putting your money into keeping your own, or are you going out to fill other holes and letting some of your own go and let the others behind them come in? I mean, that's the question that's got to be answered.
Oh, he started 16 games this year.
He did play in all 16. Yes, he did.
Yep. That's an interesting. I think that would be a cool name to get after. I mean, I want a name. I want a name.
You want TJ Ward, baby. Remember TJ Ward this time last year?
Yeah. Well, no, I wanted TJ Ward in week 1. It was as we were heading into the year. It was not this part of the year. So,
well, yeah, because he wasn't
because he hadn't been cut yet.
Right.
But I do want a name that doesn't just scream bargain.
I mean, Matt, he could be that guy, but is he the guy we want? We kind of want Coleman to fill that center fielder role, right?
A lot of people have been talking junk about him though this year. They've been saying that it's like he's showing the age. I mean, they may just be turning on him a little quickly. But they have complained. I've seen a lot of complaints about Coleman and Adams not playing very well. And
well, I mean, I have to say that adding the Honey Badger to our roster would not be a bad move. In no way could you say that's a bad move.
Right.
He does have talent. I mean, he could step down on, and play the nickel receiver, or I mean, we could definitely find a spot for him. That's for sure. It's just,
what's the cost going to be?
Right. What's the financials? That's what you have to consider.
Let's see what else. All right.
But he would make a splash. He is a splash guy, that's for sure.
And he's relatively young, I think. Let me see. How do you spell his name?
He's been in the league since, I think, 2013.
He, let me see, under the cap.
Get him and Josh Gordon on the same team, man. You're going to have some great parties.
Josh Gordon, I just read this today, that Josh Gordon had his first season where he did not record an interception.
Yeah, he was drafted in 2013.
Who are you talking about?
2013. Josh Norman did not have an interception this year.
I'm talking about Josh Gordon.
Oh, Josh
Yeah.
Gordon. That's all right. So he was born in 1982. He's 25.
Oh God, he's so young.
Yeah, he's 25 years old. He's a difference maker, dude. He's had, well, let me see, defensive interceptions. He had 5 in 2015. That was pretty good. So that was his best year, 2015, 3 years in the league. I think he got hurt in 2016. Yeah, he missed 6 games, played a full season. That'd be interesting to see what let me see his contract status right now is. He signed a 5-year, $62 million extension in August of 2016. And if he were cut this year, right now, they're not going to save that much money. I don't know why his name's even on the list. It says that they would save $5 million against the cap, but they would have 9.3 in dead money.
Ooh.
I can't imagine you cutting a guy who's a star player to save $5 million and only blow 9.3. But I guess savings is savings, right?
And maybe looking at your cap from a long-term picture, right? I mean, who else? I mean, they don't have a quarterback right now.
Right. You're right.
They might be trying to come up with every nickel they can to get somebody like Kirk Cousins, or Case Keenum, or something like that.
All right. So the questions then. All right. Last thing that I want to talk about before we talk about those football games this past week was the people that are potential names for cuts on the Carolina Panthers. CJ, you save over $3 million. You've got, as well as Stewart and Shepard are popular names there. Who do you guys think that the Panthers, who do we see depart as in unceremoniously out of that group? And do you see either Norwell or Starr coming back either?
Oh, that's a tough one, man. I really don't know. But I would like to see Jonathan Stewart exit stage left. Now he's got some value, but you save some good money by him going. I think it's $3.25 million. You
$3.7 million.
Yeah.
He's gonna. That takes a lot of space up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's time.
I would rather give that money to Norwell in hopes of retaining him. Between Starr and Norwell, I would rather keep Norwell. I think, as good as Starr is, because Starr is good, Norwell is the kind of guy, the reason I want him, I think he will always be one of the hardest working guys because he came from nothing. Remember, we picked him up off the street. He was on the Denver practice squad, if I remember correctly. And he came to Carolina, and with Carolina's coaching and, his work ethic, he's turned himself into an all-pro. And, all-pro guards just don't, just plant a tree and it produces all-pro guards. So I think, like I said, if comes down to Starr him, and we can cut Jonathan Stewart and use that money to sign Norwell, I'm all for it.
All right, so here's the numbers on this. Charles Johnson, you cut Charles Johnson, you save $3.2 million against the cap with 0 dead money. So that is one that could go. Right.
Considering he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
Well, that's an easy way to get $3 million cleared up. Then you've got Russell Shepard, who would clear up $2.1 million with 1.4 in dead money. A lot of people believe that Russell Shepard needs to go, that he's a waste of space. The one thing that he has done is that he is a gunner too, and the question is who do you got getting down there in special teams? If you don't have him, $2 million for a special teams player is the question they'll have to be evaluating there if other guys could do that. Mike Adams is a goner, I think. Is that $2.1 million in savings with only $325,000 in dead money. So I think Yeah, and you know, I think that's what he should expect at this point. I think that you don't save Fozzie Whitaker $1.1 million if he is gone. You cut Colin Jones, you save $1.1 million. I think
not my dude now.
Yeah, the big name up here is Ryan Khalil with a $7 million savings. Could be like, do you try to scratch away at and free some cap space by?
If you want Norwell, you got to let Khalil go. I think that's kind of the choice you got right there.
Right. We've got one more year with Matt Khalil.
To negotiate or take a pay cut?
Well, we would have to have that happen because if you cut him, you can't cut him right now. You would save $13.7 million, but you would have $20 million in dead money.
Oh God, no, can't do that.
That's not going to happen. He would have to renegotiate, but I don't know if it's in his interest to.
Is he one of those guys that if you hold on to him until like June 1st, if cut him after June 1st, it's like a less significant hit?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you cut him after June 1st, it is you only save $1 million, but you get it's only $5.9 million in dead money. Which means that they just gave him all the money on June 1st.
Yeah.
Right? Is that money went somewhere? You know what I'm saying? Is that would probably help us the following year. Anything after June 1st is probably is the 2019 cap year. I don't think I see anything else that could really make a big difference. I think I don't know if paying Norwell at the expense of not having Khalil next year Ryan Khalil is the best decision, because I don't believe we have Ryan Khalil's replacement in place. And when you're talking about bringing in a new offensive coordinator and trying to get more out of Cam, putting a rookie center or Tyler Larson or Gradkowski there, I don't know if that puts him in the best situation for that moment. I say we suck it up, guys. Pay Ryan Khalil, draft a center in the second round or the first round, and in case Ryan Khalil gets hurt, that we plug him in immediately as a rookie year and say you learn by trial by fire. But the plan being Khalil mentor him for a year, because Khalil is going to retire after this year. I think he won't try to get the Panthers again.
No, I agree, and there are some interesting prospects in the draft at center. That even if Norwell walks and Ryan Khalil stays, there are some players like Frank Ragnow out of Arkansas that could really play up and down the line. You draft him probably in round 2, and depending on how he does at the combine, these guys can shoot up and he could be a first rounder. But right now, you take him in round 2, and if Ryan Khalil sticks around and if Norwell's gone, he plugs right in at left guard for next year, and you wouldn't skip a beat off of Norwell, and then you'd have a long-term replacement behind Khalil. So I mean, that could be a very good strategy.
All right, so this was the question here. Is Lynn is a super Tyler Larson fan, and she says, Larson is our center. Stop hating on him. And Cody Lashney says, don't you think Larson played well for Ryan this year? I do. I don't, and it's not a referendum on Tyler Larson, but is he the long-term answer? I think what we've seen is that having Ryan Khalil as our center for the last decade has been a real advantage. One that that may be often overlooked. What if you didn't? And that the idea is Larson enough to invest just as a full-time starter with no other plan? I think that's one of the mistakes that Dave Gettleman has kind of made in the past is that he would. Dave Gettleman might make this cut right here and say, well, we got a guy in Larson who played pretty darn good. The answer is on the roster. And we have seen that doesn't always go well. Ryan Khalil's been good for Cam Newton. I don't know. Is the $7 million in savings truly worth it? I think I'd rather just cut CJ and Charles Johnson and Jonathan Stewart. You save the same amount of money, and I think you could replace them much more easily.
You could cut those 3 and keep Norwell and Starr for about that amount of money. So, I mean,
I want to let Starr walk, man. I am not overwhelmed with Starr Lotulelei like everybody says.
Be careful, man, because he's one of these big, as Gettleman called him, hog mollies. He's an unsung hero. He's the guy that frees people up to allow Luke Kuechly to be Luke Kuechly and allow KK Short to be who he is. So I would argue we should keep Starr. Honestly,
he's gonna try to command first round draft pick top money. And I think this is that while Starr Lotulelei has played well, did you really feel like there was a tremendous drop-off when Kyle Love was in there? I didn't.
Well, there's a difference between Kyle Love coming off the bench. Kyle Love has been a journeyman throughout his career. He is not a full-time starter, in my opinion.
I'm not saying that he's the answer and replacement, but if you don't really feel the drop-off that much from your starter to a long-time journeyman, how much better is your starter in comparison?
Yeah, well,
I think if we lose Starr, he's not that easily replaceable. It's going to take a heck of a player to replace Starr. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying until we do get a player, we will notice a difference over the course of a whole season.
We have, this is why the people are screaming in the chat room, Vernon Butler. That's why he drafted him. Maybe not to replace Starr specifically. Maybe the play was more at K1 Short. But I saw them play a lot of Butler when he was on the field at that one technique or whatever they call it that Starr plays. Is that and at the end of the day is that you possibly gonna lose Norwell and Starr. Who would be more important to keep out of those two? I think people tend to feel that Norwell is the more valuable in this case because you invested a lot in K1 Short and Starr and Vernon Butler.
I tend to agree. I'm just not willing to pay $10+ million for a left guard in this offense. Right guard, we're paying Turner $11 million, and in this offense, that right guard is more important than your left guard. And sometimes you got to make choices. Would you rather take $10 million and get a high-end wide receiver playmaker, high-end type of defensive end, or do you want to put that money into a left guard that you can fill in the draft? I love Norwell, but I'm not willing to pay him $10 million. You gotta manage your cap too.
What about Starr in that vein? If you're going to take that position with Starr, do you think that Starr is more? Then you're saying he's more valuable because he's harder to replace.
Well, I think you do have to have your number with Starr too. I think you got to get him at the right price, and I'm not willing to pay over $10 million for him either. So at the end of the day, I might be letting them both walk.
I don't think Starr wants to be in Carolina.
If that's the case, then
what makes you say that?
He did, unless it's just talk to get the contract negotiations, fan that he did say that he was going to test free agency. Like he just came out and said that. As well as is that I've heard that he was upset that he didn't get a deal that the Panthers didn't come to approach him with making a deal earlier. Like maybe last year. I think he feels second fiddle completely to K1 Short and unappreciated or underappreciated by everybody, and I think he thinks he can get paid more elsewhere.
Wow.
Well, at the end of the day, I don't blame a guy for getting out there in free agency. I think, I mean, Charles Johnson did that, right? I mean, he went up to New York, but he ended up coming back for less money. So I think you owe it to your family to go out there and see what your market value is and do that part of it. So I don't begrudge him that. But if the ones that hurt me is like, and I know you don't want to hear this, but what happened with Julius Peppers back in the day when we offer him more money and he leaves for less.
Oh, God. Still talking about that.
Hey, it's the truth. That's the ones that hurt.
Yeah, Lynn says, what do you expect Starr to say about the subject given he got slighted? And, actually I don't expect him to say anything else. I think that not only do I believe, I think he truly wants to test free agency. Carlton Davis says that Starr's going to go to Arizona with Wilks. I don't know. I think this, but I was also arguing that we should have extended K1 Short a year earlier than we did. That year point. That they did Fletcher Cox, I thought that you could have come and you still, it would have seemed like a blockbuster move at that moment, but you actually save money because you got 1 year ahead of the inflation curve for everything. Mm-hmm. And then the other is that, you did make Starr go out there, not Starr, K1 Short, go out there and prove it, that he could do it again before you did pay him, which I don't think that obviously he's enjoyed or his experience in Carolina, but I don't know if Starr, Starr's just the odd man out. So I do think that he doesn't maybe feel that allegiance to the organization that we would want some other players to feel, and I don't blame him one bit. But I don't think he's a Carolina Panther next year.
Man, it's going to be an interesting offseason. I don't think we're going to have any.
Thanks, Tony.
What's that, Joey?
I said thanks. That just ruined my night.
Okay. Here, let me ruin your night with this. I saw a top 100 cornerback assessment, or at least they said it was going to be top 100. It started with like 81, so I don't know how that's top 100. But you go through, they were pretty high on James Bradbury being one of the biggest, like the biggest corner in the league. They described him, or as one of the biggest corners in the league. They complimented Bradbury. I think he was like in the 30s maybe, and they complimented him as having the ability to improve, but he's going to have to, he has to do some things different. But they were not high on Daryl Worley one bit. And this guy, he let Daryl Worley have it, and he just said, you need to upgrade. He was in the 70s, I think, or 60s or 70s. I thought that it was a very superficial take on Daryl Worley. I do think that Daryl Worley has a lot of things to improve upon, but he was really hard on him.
That's, he had a lot of pressure put on him this year, and he had his ups and downs. I don't think you throw him out, but I think you do need to bring in some real solid competition for the guy, make him earn that spot.
Yeah, they described him as a backup player, which I don't know if I'm ready to say yet, but I think it's just going to take him a little longer to be a starter.
Yeah, these guys were thrown into the fire. And I thought he had some really good games this year. I think he did some really good things.
I think he improved significantly this year after we just trashed on him, me specifically, for a year and a half.
No, I agree. And I think he has some real upside. I do believe you got, whether it's through the draft or free agency, you got to bring in at least one more corner to give that competition in the secondary.
Oh, one other thing is going back to Norwell quickly. Why, if he leaves, I think we got to try Moten out at guard.
No doubt about it. You
drafted this guy. It's time to give some of these dudes a shot.
Speaking of cornerbacks, what kind of money do we save if we cut Munnerlyn?
None.
Yeah.
You got him one more year. Captain Munnerlyn would save you $500,000 to be cut, and you would have $4.5 million in dead money. And remember, too, Corn Elder should be coming back this year.
Yeah.
So you get
like
Munnerlin for 1 year, you coach up Corn Elder, and you pass the baton after that. Guys, let's go and just talk quickly about the games this past weekend. Surprises, the dang Eagles just straight dominated the Vikings. I was floored, but what I went back is two things stuck out to me about this game. Reminded me a lot of the Carolina Panthers defeating the Arizona Cardinals at home in the NFC Championship in 2015. And one of the things that gave me that feeling and the true turn in the game, that defensive interception return for a touchdown, that's what the Panthers defense did for us in that NFC Championship game. Man, when your defense scores a touchdown, it blows. It's a double. It hurts twice as much as an offensive touchdown.
It really does. It changes the whole game. So I mean that was something that the Panthers were really good at in 2015.
Yeah, it was.
What happened to the Vikings, Joey?
Man, I think part of it is, they had that big win, that huge emotional win over the Saints. And I think they took a lot of wind out of their sails, and they just couldn't get up enough to go into Philadelphia and win. Once they got behind, after that big turnover for a touchdown, it's like the Vikings team quit. They didn't have any fight left in them, is what I felt like. They were out there going through the motions, but lifeless.
I heard this crazy stat, and I'm not going to repeat it accurately, but it was something to the effect of teams that have won on the final seconds, like won the game on the last play of the game. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. When you won the game in the last play of the game the week before, that teams in the playoffs or just teams, they're 0-10. Mm-hmm. Or 1-10, something like that. It was just like, you don't like to hear those stats very often, but that's a pretty crazy one.
That is.
Wow.
Now, turning the other way look, real super kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles. Doug Peterson, I saw a great, I think it may have been Amanda Helms that put this out, or Reggie Chrome. I can't remember which one, but if Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl, is Carson Wentz just the system quarterback?
Yeah, I think it was Reggie Chrome. I think.
What a great tweet, because we all know what it feels like to hear the jerk saying, like, well, we could do this without Carson Wentz, or we could do this without Cam Newton. Nick Foles, though, played very well. And I like this, when you get a backup in there or a guy that isn't your star, to like give him some moments to pretend he's won. And they just said, go deep and throw it deep. And you know what? He connected and he started feeling it.
Mm-hmm. He did. And, he's a guy who's had success before in Philly. I mean, he had an incredible run before he got the big payday out in St. Louis. And, it didn't work out for him out there. But, this is not an untalented quarterback.
For sure.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he threw one interception one year, or had a interceptionless year with Chip Kelly. I think that it was a real testament to the Eagles coaching staff, how they approached that game. I think they were well prepared, particularly when you're losing your DeFlippio or whatever. I think he's leaving, right? So I mean, you got some guys that are interviewing or moving on to greener pastures after this, and there's an opportunity for you to lose focus. They didn't. Now, the other side, that stupid other game. What a stunner! What a stunner, man! Jacksonville comes out just throwing haymakers, dude. They were defensively getting after them. Blake Bortles played. I like how they said this. I heard this 100 times, I felt like, is Nick Foles is having the game of his life. Blake Bortles is having the game of their life, and they were like 12 for 16. Now, I mean, it was a great game from them, but it wasn't like they had 400 yards pass. Well, I think Bortles did have a lot of yards. But Bortles comes out there. We about had a Bortles Foles Super Bowl. Jaguars, who were trash last year. To me, I'm actually very excited about the Jaguars team. Talk about what a team can turn around quickly when you put a good defense and a running game together. I mean, they had New England's number, but at any moment, never did I truly feel that New England was going to lose. No matter how far ahead they were in the beginning, I never felt it.
Right. I hate that guy, but he is the GOAT, and everybody knows who I'm talking about. Jeez. Yeah.
Mr. Pajama Man or whatever. And Joey, how do you deal with that if you're the Jaguars, man? Good God. Dagger.
Well, there has to be a lot of frustration, and I will tell you my ice up pick this week comes from this Jaguars game.
So
you gotta be excited because of what you were able to accomplish this year. You have to be excited about that. But at the same time, you gotta be frustrated because I honestly believe that, all in all, that they should have won the game.
Hell yeah, they should have won the game. They had every possible thing going for them. They just let them come down the field, and they couldn't stop them when they had to stop them, and then they couldn't get 3 points when they needed 3 points.
You know who an interesting player on that team is, who is going to be a free agent, who would fill a big need, is Marquise Lee.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying his name. He played very tough. You know who I liked watching in that game, and he got injured in that game, but I was looking at Cam Robinson and how well he's doing.
Oh, man, I was ready to take him at 8 last year.
I know. And then and he dropped, and then look, what do you know?
Yeah, he's a player, man.
Fournette is just a freaking battering ram, dude.
He is unbelievable. I mean, Ken Dye was right. That guy's a freak of nature, man, and he was definitely worth the 4th pick overall. He did like Ezekiel Elliott did for Dallas. He transformed that team.
Mm-hmm. But I don't even think he's as explosive as Ezekiel Elliott.
No, he's not. No, definitely not. But
I think of Leonard Fournette is what I imagine is the equivalent of somebody winding up and hitting you with a sledgehammer. Like just that blunt force trauma.
The downside to Fournette is that is how he plays, and he will not play a 16-game season.
He will have a short career too.
He'll have a short career, and he'll probably average 13 games a year. But those 13 games are going to get you into the playoffs.
I tell you one thing is that Muggs are going to be trembling anytime they got to try to tackle that dude.
Yeah,
for sure.
Their defense was playing nasty. I think that you got, like Joey said, the disappointment because, you don't get those opportunities very often.
No.
And if you're Jacksonville, I mean, this is a one in a million type thing because you were terrible last year. Your quarterback wasn't very good, but somehow the defense, you got a kind of a newer head coach, like somehow it all worked out and you got hot, and you even went into the AFC Championship game in a place on the road, in a place where New England never loses, and they still don't, obviously, but you didn't come out and lay a dud. I mean, you really went out there and fought. You're like one play away from being in the Super Bowl. But damn it, if I believe there's some sort of deal that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have cut with the devil.
They just believe, man. They just know they're going to do it. And there's a difference between thinking and hoping and praying and knowing. And they just know that they're going to come back.
Favorite part of that game, guys, is the celebration where they give out the trophies and they hand the AFC Championship trophy to Belichick, and he acts like it is a Miller High Life and just passes it to the next dude, like without even any interest. Like, what's this paperweight? I only hold Super Bowl trophies. So, all right. Well, let's just knock these cat calls out and we're good. I don't think there's anything. You guys, any other things that we missed? Greg Olson sent a kid to the Super Bowl, airfare, tickets, and everything. All expenses paid. sent a kid to the Super Bowl. And I saw another cool thing from Greg Olson. He was at the mall or somewhere doing some sort of event. Some lady and her daughter went there, took off early, were still in the back of the line when it closed, and they said, we're at the food court, disappointed we didn't get to see him. And he said, or if you're still there, hold on. Like he was going to come out to the food court.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, super cool. I think that's it. So that's probably everything we can talk about. We got plenty more weeks to talk about. We'll come back next week. We'll get ready for this Super Bowl, see where we're at, and figure out how the Panthers can get back there. Last show of the season next week prior to the Super Bowl, episode 52 on the horizon. This is like 5 years straight where we've gone every week. So let's close it out with these cat calls, and here they go.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Yeah, it's pretty. You shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
Who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in the snow? Who's that kid that can use one?
Yo, Cat Chronicles. My name's Marvin Woodard. I'm a huge Panther fan. Been a Panther fan for years. Just wanted to know when you guys can let me get on and give my thoughts. Keep pounding.
Well, that was your shot, man. Bring back the call next week.
Done.
That's it.
That freaking Puerto Rican Joe Real. What's going on, boys? It's the YouTube champion, Cody Lashley. What's going on? So, we have lost Steve Wilks, and I'm happy to see him go. Not because I don't like him, or because I don't think they did a good job here in Carolina, but one of the things I said earlier this season when I called into the show was that since we were blitzing so much, I felt that it hurt our linebacker play. That Luke and Thomas, they're great coverage linebackers, and Shaq also. And I felt that blitzing so much, it ended up hurting us when you had those games where the center and the guard, they would get to that second level, they'd instantly block our linebackers, and then the next thing you know, the running back is hauling ass downfield. And we also had a safety blitzing as well, so there's no one back there. So, we have Eric Washington as the defensive coordinator now, and I'm hoping that he has the same mantra that McDermott had, and that get pressure with your front four. Make sure that you're not having to blitz every down so that way you can drop people back into coverage a little bit more. Secondly, I would like to say that, Tony Dunn, you have baptized me into the school of Vernon Butler can play the one. Yes. I've seen him do it. I've seen clips of him against Atlanta and the Saints playing one technique. And I love Star Lotulelei, the player, the man, but I honestly feel that it's Vernon Butler's time to shine. It's a cheaper contract, and he's 2 inches bigger and 15 pounds heavier. I mean, if Star Lotulelei is going to do nothing but eat space and take on double teams so that way our defensive ends and K1 can get a one-on-one matchup, there's no reason why Vernon can't do the same thing. So that's all I have for the show, boys. As we get into the draft, I'm kind of wanting to call in, give some thoughts on the prospects that are coming up in the draft.
Do it. We need it.
But that's here nor there. Love you, boys. Keep pounding.
He couldn't resist, guys. He could not resist.
Yeah,
he was.
Hey, Cody again. Something dawned on me after I called. Is anyone else tired of Bill Voth and his miserable ass? I mean, I know he's a Browns fan, but I feel like every time I read something that he puts out, he's such a naysayer on Cam Newton. And then if you go on Panthers.com and you watch the interview that he did with Norv Turner, which, by the way, I recommend everyone do, because it actually made me feel a lot better about the Norv Turner hiring. But it's like, Bill Voth is saying Cam Newton's not a pocket passer. He's not this. Oh, he's kind of inaccurate. kind of streaky in his words. And it's like, damn, Bill, what team do you work for? Like, I appreciate honesty, but I feel like he's almost a hater more than he is a supporter of Cam Newton. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Forgot to add that. Peace and love.
All right. I want to comment on all of his things. First of all, I want to go back and say that he was 100% being honest and truthful, that he did call in throughout the season and say that the blitzing, where he could see the problems, was in this linebacker play. And you have actually seen some people saying, or people saying, look, is that Luke Kuechly was not as good as he generally is this season. And so I don't know how far we want to get into that overall, but that is one of those things about the blitzing that maybe we don't recognize as much as when it just comes to like, hey, being aggressive, too aggressive. That actually shows you how too aggressive translates into weaknesses at other places maybe. But I do 100% agree about Vernon Butler. I'm glad I've got a disciple now on that. And I saw this in the YouTube chat room. You'll like this, Mel, is that Bill Voth, Kevin Ketchy says, is like the new Darren Gant. And Darren Gant is, he's your favorite, isn't he?
He is. No doubt.
He is not my favorite. And the only thing I don't like about Darren Gant is he is 100% convinced that he is the funniest person on earth.
You misunderstand the dude. That's not true.
He laughs harder at his jokes than anybody, and he refuses to recognize any other humor.
That's just not true, man.
Okay. He is getting he is funny though. He is very funny.
And he knows his stuff. But I mean, but I hear what you're saying, but to say that makes it sound like he is an arrogant guy. And to me, he's a very humble guy. Maybe I just understand him in a different way because I've been following him for 20 years, or maybe I just see him in a different way, but that's how I see him.
He does laugh. When you tell a joke and the person who tells the joke laughs the hardest.
Yeah.
Is that even if it's funny, like it's a funny joke, but hey, you're not supposed to be the one who's laughing the hardest. I feel like that's how he does a little bit. But all of these reporters, I think, they're humans, right? They can't please everybody at all moments. So, you get somebody that says like, is that Bill Voth on one hand could be too complimentary to the Panthers, and you want him to throw the harder questions. So these guys aren't going to win at all. But I do think that over time they get annoyed by fans. I think they also live in an era where their careers and the value of journalism is in an uncharted place where they're probably a little settled naturally, just because of the changing nature of the industry and how people are interacting with them. So, interested. And Bill Voth he kind of had to he took the job with the team after doing Black and Blue Review. I think, though, one thing that Bill Voth did this week that made me laugh is that he tweeted out a story he wrote 3 weeks ago about Eric Washington, like, remember how I said this was going to happen? And I feel like, what if I put out a story that said from 2 years ago, Daryl Worley was trash. Be like, told y'all. Right? I just think it's kind of but we do all that all the time. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to ask you to subscribe to the show. Follow us on Twitter @cat_chronicles. Let us know that you love the C3 podcast by calling in to the Cat Calls line, 252-228-5098. Joey, you mentioned that you got an ice up pick for him. I think it's time that you drop it on him.
All right. Well, let's get into some ice up picks. You know, we talked earlier about the New England-Jacksonville game and how Jacksonville just couldn't get the score when they needed it. Well, it's funny that you said that because they did get their score. It happened earlier in the game when Jacksonville was able to force a turnover. And I believe it was Brandon Flowers picked it up and was going to run it back for a touchdown. But the referees blew the play dead. And this is so typical of the NFL. For one, throughout most of the season, there have been several times where referees made bad calls. I can honestly say that for me, this is one of the worst seasons performance by the referees in general this year. And in this case, I think it cost the Jaguars the game.
Yeah, it was Miles Jack.
And run it in for a touchdown. That makes the Patriots' job almost impossible. Yes, they're going to come back and keep it close, but that gives the Jags a really, really big cushion. And it's just the icing on the cake. Two things. It's the icing on the cake for how bad the refs has been this season, and it's very typical for the Patriots to get the benefit of the doubt from the referees. I'm not saying they're doing it intentionally, but I am saying that it seems like whenever the Patriots need a break or the referees are unsure about something, it always falls in favor of New England. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. I'm certainly not saying that. But I am saying to the referees in general throughout the NFL, ice up, sons.
All right.
I like it.
Mel, what do you got for us?
All right. Well, this one's kind of a fun one for me. Just kind of me living vicariously through another fan base. But I think this is pretty cool. You know that the Minnesota Vikings fans have gone out and have actually started a little thing and actually got some tweets here. One from @SportsGeekDeek, where he says, "I'm going to sign up as an Uber driver just for the Super Bowl, as I'm going to be dropping off Eagle fans in random places during the Super Bowl." Hashtag skull. Yeah, and there's actually there's quite a few saying that. I don't think it's just a joke either. I think there's going to be Minnesota Viking fans signing up as Uber drivers. Anybody in Philadelphia Eagle garb, they're going to be dropping them off. So just to make this kind of short and sweet, to the Eagle fans who threw snowballs at Santa Claus in 1968 and have progressively gotten worse over the years. That's the one fan base other than Atlanta that I just really cannot stand. So I'm living vicariously through the Viking Uber drivers this coming next 2 weeks up there in Minnesota, telling the Eagle fans they're literally going to be icing up, son.
All right, ice up. My ice up pick goes to Mattress Firm, and the company Mattress Firm, which is a giant retailer of mattresses, that they're known for having stores in very close proximity to each other, especially like in Greenville. We have one, and they are on opposite sides of Greenville Boulevard from each other. They are two stores, one on each side of the road, so you don't have to turn. You want to turn right, you go to the one on the right. You want to turn left, you go to the one on the left. What is funny is that a Reddit comment has set off a firestorm on the internet. It has gotten 26,000 upvotes on Reddit as of this one picture. And it says, Mattress Firm is some sort of giant money laundering scheme. They are effing everywhere and always empty. I remember seeing 4 mattress forms all on each corner of the intersection at once, and there's nobody in there. He said that he's gone on and said a few people seem confused. I'm talking about the multiple of the same mattress store in close proximity to each other, and that nobody is in there. Well, then the thing gets cooler, because the top comment on Reddit is that pointing out that this store is owned by a guy named Steinhoff, which is currently embroiled in a huge money laundering saga. So I think this Reddit commenter broke open the story of the year. Mattress Firm is not really a mattress place. It's a firm where they money launder money under the guise of mattresses. So to you, stores across the street competing with your own company, I say to you, ice up.
You know, it's so funny, man. There's been many a times when, you know, my wife and I were driving around in Vegas, we'd see them out there and we commented, that has to be a front for something. I mean, there's just so many of them. It's crazy.
Right.
Huh.
All right. That's the C3 podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com, where every Tuesday night we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinion from the fan perspective. Appreciate everybody jumping in the YouTube chat room. Joey, good hanging out with you. Mel, wonderful hanging out with you again. I hope to see you guys soon. Mel's coming to Greenville a couple weeks. Can't wait to see him. And we'll see all of you next Tuesday night. Be sure, share, subscribe, get involved with CarolinaCatChronicles.com. We'll see you next week.